Mary, it's been lovely for me to see a little bit about what the whole organization is doing, the work, of course, of Restart, but also the Sanata Women's Group with the wonderful things they are making. I've learned a bit about the briquettes, I've seen the medicinal garden, and also the agricultural project. And it is really about partnership. And we talk a lot about partnership and the close friendship and partnership between Britain and Kenya. And I would like to say to the children here, what an absolute honor it is to see so many of you and see you thriving. If you had asked me when I was your age what I would be doing when I was grown up, I would never have dreamed that I would be a Balozi or a High Commissioner. I wouldn't have dreamt it. And if you had asked my friends or my family, they wouldn't have believed it either. But if you work hard, if you take this wonderful opportunity that you have been given, the sky is the limit. So please dare to dream, dare to take that advantage that is being offered to you here. And we have, I hope, played our small part in this story. You heard about the operation that was conducted with our support. You heard about the International Child Protection Certificate that we have now initiated between our two governments. Some of the equipment you have here at Restart, I'm delighted to say we were able to contribute. And we are also working with the government of Kenya on a new child protection strategy. This is one of the top priorities for the British Prime Minister, David Cameron. And of 3 countries that have been selected as a priority for that work across the world, I'm delighted to say that Kenya is one of them. So I hope you will see a lot more, thank you, I hope you'll see a lot more partnership in this area and a lot more work together to show our resolve and our commitment and our friendship to safeguard the children of Kenya and see wonderful projects such as this flourish. In conclusion, I would like to say my final word of thanks to Mary. Mary, your leadership, your resolve, what you have built and achieved here is absolutely remarkable. And I think we all have a real debt of thanks to you. So could I invite you, please, can we have another round of applause for Mary and her wonderful team.
My name is Mary Coulson. I live in Gilgil. I am the founder and executive director of the Sanata Charitable Trust and Restart Africa. It began in 2008 at the height of the aftermath of the 2007-8 election violence. And I felt there was a tremendous need for someone to help what I saw in the streets of Gilgil. We had many hundreds of displaced people, homeless people, and the streets were filled. And when I went onto the streets with Peter, who's now my assistant, he and I went out together, we actually saw young children, middle-sized children, bigger children, abandoned, left, bewildered, scavenging in the rubbish, totally homeless, totally helpless. And we saw 2- and 3-year-olds out there, and I came home and I absolutely knew that somebody had to do something, and that somebody obviously was going to be me, because I was the one that had seen it and felt it, and I was the one that knew that it was wrong and something had to happen. The children are always the victims in adult conflict, always. Yes. They always suffer more than anyone else. And these children, these innocent children, were really, really suffering. And, I mean, you can't, children are innocent. You can't leave them to die. And some of the children, I believe, were dying. You know, they were actually dying, little children who were sick. Nobody cared, nobody did anything. So it was a pretty desperate situation. And, you know, we started immediately. We took in 6 children, found a place to house them, which was pretty terrible. It was really awful, but it was better than being on the streets. And we were able to get them food. And literally just to know that the children were in a building and we managed to get some mattresses, you know, and we started in a very basic way, but at least I knew that there were 6 children who were safe.
Okay.
And 6 children who were not going to die on the streets.
Okay.
It hasn't been an easy challenge, I assure you, it hasn't been easy, but I don't think anything in life that's worthwhile is easy, and I think you have to take a steadfast path, you have to be determined, you have to have a vision, you have to hold that vision, and you have to believe that everything's going to work, because it does. If you have doubts, those doubts create negative thoughts, and the negative thoughts create negatives happening. So one has to keep very positive, and very positive in life. And so I have, and that's how I feel we've managed to get, one of the reasons, and the people that I've met that have helped us, you know, it's because I really truly believed in this and the need for it, and those people, when they came out too, they saw the need and they believed in it as well, and then that energy spreads, and so you get more and more people thinking like you, and they're helping now, and then they get more people to help them because they're so passionate. And really that's how it's worked, you know, and the people that have supported us in this charity are fantastic people with great compassion. And you know, mostly from the UK. I mean, some from Australia, some from the United States, but mostly from the United Kingdom. And you know, the United Kingdom don't have to help us here. Nobody has to help us. And it's because most of them they've seen what the streets of Gilgil are like. A town with no infrastructure, mass unemployment, filthy, dirty. It's a sad place to live. You have poverty coming out of our ears. And I believe that people here, and the children in particular, live like human beings shouldn't live, because those children are treated lower than the vermin, lower than the stray dogs on the street. And that's wrong. And all my people that came out, all my guests, all my friends, all people like Chris and people in the English Trust who came out, they feel the same way. And so they're as determined as I am to continue helping. Very difficult times. Difficult times when you know, you just don't know whether next month, how you're going to pay for the next month. For you know, the children, for the salaries of the people that look after the children. Please don't think it's easy. And I really wouldn't recommend for anyone to start a charity that, you know, like I did, because I think I was foolhardy in a way to believe that it was going to work out, but it did work out. Oh, it is working out. Okay. But I think other people would have to think very carefully, because you know that passion has got to drive you forward. And it's very easy to lose passion when you've got no money and you can't see money coming in. And also, if I could say this, please don't think it's easy to take children from the streets and from the backgrounds that our children come from, because they are the most vulnerable of society in this country. They come from terrible cruelty, terrible sexual abuse. They're unloved and they're unwanted. And for a child to be born on earth that way is a very difficult thing. And it's not easy to bring a child in and for them to trust adults. Yes. So the first thing that you have to teach them is that they can trust you. It's not easy to do that. You then have to get the right balance for that child. You then have to enable that child to speak and release all this terrible frustration and feelings about being lesser, about being unloved, and you know, they all blame themselves. The sexual abuse, any sexual abuse that's taken place, which it always does, they blame themselves. They feel they're wrong, they've done something wrong. They have absolutely no self-confidence. Or, the other way around, they have so much pretend self-confidence that what they do is think they're infallible, so they steal and they do all kinds of things, because that's the psyche and the facade that they've built up to be able to live in the streets. So we have to, bit by bit, break that down. We have to understand each individual child's needs. We have to really get to know them incredibly well. And for my social worker too, Dan Doritu, who was also on the streets as a child, who was an alcoholic and a drug addict when I got him. And he is now the most amazing person. We have trained him, we have managed to send him out for training, and he's got his higher national diploma in sociology, and he's going on to do a degree. He's our social worker. And because he's been on the streets, and because he's been a drug addict, and also on drink, he knows, he empathizes with those children, and with the bigger boys that we get, even with the girls that we get, because he knows what it's like and what was like for his sisters. And so that we've been incredibly fortunate that we have someone that can really enter this block that they've put up against adults. And he can enter that. And then, of course, they build up relationships with other members of staff, with other children, and particularly with me. Well, we have a girl who's in one of the top national secondary schools in the country, and we have a boy who's in one of the top secondary schools in the country, and that boy was at primary school at 18, right? He'd never been to school until we put him through. And so, you know, the children, honestly, they really succeed, and they become, you know, young people with self-respect and self-empowerment. They know that they create their own reality. Me being me, I've got many future plans, but I want to tell you that I want to finish the restart first before I do anything else. And so our immediate plan would most definitely to try and get the second story on the dormitories. Because we're already overrun with kids. We have too many children for the accommodation that we have, even in this new building. So I really feel that's the priority. We must get a second story so we can, instead of having the extra children in the gym, they can be in bedrooms, and that's my priority. When I started this, I would say to my staff, and I still say, and to my trustees, I say to them, you know, this should be a model, not just Restart, not just the children, but you know, we have the women's group. We have the big unemployed youth group on the streets. We have a medicinal plant garden. We have an agricultural project. If we can do that in Gilgil, you think what the aid organisations and the governments could do. They could set up something like that with very little money, very easily, in every town in this country. But not just this country, the whole of Black Africa, and not just the whole of Black Africa. What about the whole of the underdeveloped world? Because if I can do it, truly, everybody can do it.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you.
My name is Chris Conway. I'm Vice Chairman of the UK Trust for Sanata. I live in Shrewsbury in the UK. My first experience in Africa was I did VSO in Tanzania in 1975 and worked there for 2 years. And I've been coming back to Africa ever since. The way I got involved with Sanata was that 5 years ago, when my daughter was 18, she decided she would like us to try and climb Kilimanjaro, which I also wanted to do. We then decided we would like to raise some money for some African charity. And we were very keen to go to something where we could see an end product, where we would be sure the money wouldn't be wasted. I have just recently retired from being a teacher, and the school that I was at, one of the former headmasters is the current chairman of the UK Sanata Trust, and he set up the UK end of it. So I contacted him and I said, is there a project that we could raise money for? And he said, yes, absolutely. We would like you to raise some money to fund a particular worker for 6 months. And that's what we did. Following that, I was then asked would I like to become more involved with Sanata, and the rest is history. Well, the Trust, essentially in the UK, raises money to fund the actions of the Trust in Kenya. And the crucial thing is always to aim at helping the children and serving the needs of the children. And in all these sorts of projects, there are two important sort of needs. One are money for capital projects, for get better buildings, but also money for ongoing costs, whether it is for food, for laundry, to pay the staff, whatever. And we have over the years managed to create a sort of an erratic but fairly regular source of funding, with every now and again somebody being willing to donate an awful lot for a particular project. So the Sabi Foundation has given money for the new Restart building. Some particular donors gave money for the bus for the children. But overall, we are committed to trying to support the children from the stage where they are just requiring to be fed, looked after, to the point where they can then go to get education and get a living, so that what we would like to see ideally are people leaving Sanata Trust as independent adults who can function, both to look after themselves and contribute to a flourishing Kenya. Well, the charity is now looking to make sure that what we have achieved so far is sustained as number one priority. So the children within Sanata, we are committed to looking after them and giving them a future. We would love to be able to raise enough money to expand that to other children who have not been so fortunate. And also we see that Sanata can really only flourish in the long term, and the long term needs of these children, if the community flourishes as well. So that it's one of the distinctive things about Sanata, is this commitment to a sort of community, and Gilgil community would benefit from extension of the women's workshop, creating employment for the women, the briquette, creating a source of employment for people in the community and for some of the older people leaving Sanata. We would love to be able to extend the education opportunities we have to people who are not resident in the Restart, but part of the community. So I think there's also the agricultural side. All these projects, they're not there as just extras, they're part of what we see as being an essential part of creating a sustainable community which would allow the Restart to flourish.
Okay.